Listen, I have been doing this job for 17 cycles now, and I have seen everything. Everything. I have watched cadets from the most prestigious families flame out spectacularly. I have documented geniuses who could calculate hyperspace trajectories in their sleep but could not figure out which end of a plasma rifle to hold. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for Marcus Webb. The human. The last place human. You know what? Let me back up. My name is Krill, and I am what you would call an observer. I document the training programs at the Galactic Defense Academy on Station Helix 9. It is not glamorous work, but someone has to record these things for posterity, right? Future generations need to know who the heroes were, how they trained, all that inspiring garbage. Mostly, I just file reports and try not to fall asleep during combat drills. The day Marcus Webb arrived, I was in my usual spot in the observation deck, 3 cups of stimulant brewed deep into my shift, watching the new batch of cadets shuffle into the main atrium. You could always spot the confident ones immediately. They walked with their chests out, heads high, already mentally preparing their acceptance speeches for when they graduated top of class. Then there was Marcus. He tripped over the entrance ramp. I am not exaggerating. He literally stumbled over a perfectly flat surface that had been designed by the best engineers in 7-star systems specifically to be impossible to trip over. But this human, this wonderful disaster of a human, managed it anyway. His duffel bag went flying, clothes exploded everywhere, and he face-planted right in front of Commander Torvanix. Now, Torvanix is a Krylon, which means he stands about 8 feet tall, has 4 arms, and a face that looks like someone tried to sculpt anger out of granite and then gave up halfway through. He is not known for his patience. He looked down at Marcus, who was sprawled on the floor with a sock draped over his head, and I swear I saw the commander's primary eye twitch. Name? Torvanix growled. Webb, sir. Marcus Webb, sir. The human scrambled to his feet, saluting with the wrong hand. Ready for training, sir. You are already failing, Webb. Yes, sir. Wait, no, sir. I mean, I will do better, sir. I marked him down in my notes right then. Dead last. No question. The Galactic Defense Academy is not some cushy school where they hand out participation awards. This is where the elite come to become the ultra-elite. We are talking about the best warriors, tacticians, and pilots from hundreds of worlds. The entrance requirements alone would make a Vorgoth battle master weep. Physical tests that push species to their biological limits. Mental examinations that have literally caused brains to melt. I have seen it happen twice. It was disgusting. And Marcus? Oh, Marcus barely passed the entrance exams. I checked his scores later. He squeaked by with exactly the minimum required points in every single category. Not a point more. It was almost impressive in its own pathetic way. The first day of actual training confirmed every suspicion I had. Combat assessment. Last place. The Zenthari cadet, a female named Cress with reflexes like a cobra on stimulants, took him down in 4 seconds. 4. I timed it. Marcus spent more time falling than fighting. Weapons qualification. Dead last. He held the plasma rifle backwards during the first drill. Backwards. The safety instructor had to physically turn it around for him while the other cadets laughed so hard that one of them, a Dralian named Vorn, actually cracked a rib. Tactical simulation. You guessed it. Last place. He somehow managed to lose a scenario where his side outnumbered the enemy 3-1. The simulation AI actually paused midway through, as if it needed a moment to process the sheer incompetence it was witnessing. But here is the thing that got me, the thing that made me keep watching even when every logical part of my brain told me to focus on literally any other cadet. Marcus never stopped smiling. I mean it. This human would get absolutely demolished in hand-to-hand combat, dust himself off, grin like an idiot, and say something like, "Wow, that was a great throw. Can you teach me that, or man, I almost blocked that punch. Next time for sure. It was infuriating. The other cadets treated him exactly how you would expect. They mocked him relentlessly. Someone, probably Vorn because he is exactly that creative, started calling Marcus, the anchor, because he dragged down every team exercise he participated in. The nickname stuck. Within a week, everyone called him that. Everyone except Cress. The Zenthari was ranked first in class, which surprised absolutely no one. She was fast, smart, ruthless, and had that special quality that separates good soldiers from legendary ones. She could read a battle 3 moves ahead. When she sparred, it looked like a dance. A violent, terrifying dance where her opponents usually ended up unconscious, but still, beautiful in its own way. I noticed her watching Marcus during a particularly brutal training session in week 3. The exercise was simple enough. Navigate an obstacle course while instructors fired stun rounds at you. Most cadets made it through in under 10 minutes. Vorn held the record at 6 minutes, 42 seconds. Marcus took 37 minutes. 37. He got stunned so many times that the medical officer actually got concerned and checked to make sure the human was not having a seizure. But Marcus kept getting up. Every single time. His muscles would be spasming from the stun rounds, and he would haul himself to his feet, shake it off, and keep moving forward. Why does he not quit? I heard Cress mutter to herself. Good question. I had been wondering the same thing. Any rational being would have dropped out by now. The Academy allows it. No shame in admitting you are not cut out for this level of training. Plenty of cadets wash out in the first month. It is expected. But not Marcus. Week 5 brought the team combat exercises, and this is where things started getting interesting. The instructors divided the cadets into squads of 5. Each squad would compete and capture the flag scenarios, hostage rescues, all the standard military training stuff. Marcus got assigned to Squad 7 along with Cress, Vorn, and 2 other cadets, a Pelthian named Jix and a Koran named Tmora. On paper, Squad 7 should have dominated. They had the top-ranked cadet, 2 solid mid-tier performers, and well, they had Marcus. Great, Vorn announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. We got the anchor. Guess we are going for last place. Cress said nothing, but her tail, which Zenthari used to express emotion, twitched in what I had learned to recognize as annoyance. The first scenario was a simple search and rescue. Hostile territory. 3 simulated hostages. 20-minute time limit. Squad 7 went in confident. They came out 15 minutes later, having rescued all 3 hostages and neutralized every enemy combatant. Second scenario. Asset protection. They needed to defend a position against waves of attackers. Squad 7 held their ground for the full duration without losing the asset once. Third scenario. They broke the previous Academy record. People started noticing. How is Squad 7 performing so well? Another observer asked me during a break. They have the anchor. I had been reviewing the footage, and I was starting to see something nobody else had noticed yet. Something that made me lean forward in my seat, actually interested for the first time in cycles. Marcus was not just the worst cadet in class. He was doing it on purpose. Okay, not the being terrible part. He was genuinely awful at combat. But watch his eyes during the team exercises. Watch where he positioned himself. The kid had been paying attention, studying everyone, learning their patterns, their strengths, their weaknesses. During the search and rescue, while everyone else was focused on the hostages, Marcus had been watching the terrain, noting patrol routes, predicting where enemies would come from. He could not fight worth a damn, but he could tell Cress exactly where to be and when. During asset protection, he had spent the entire time running ammunition and supplies between positions, making sure everyone had what they needed before they needed it. Not glamorous. Not heroic. But absolutely essential. He was not a warrior. He was a force multiplier. And nobody realized it yet. Week 8 brought the mid-term evaluations, and this is where the story really begins, because this is when Marcus fought Cress. The matchup was random, drawn from a pool of names. When Marcus, Webb and Cress were announced as opponents for the exhibition match, the entire academy lost their minds. The betting pools went crazy. The odds were something like 500 to 1 against Marcus. I might have put money on those odds. I am not proud of it, but come on, 500 to 1. The exhibition matches were a big deal. Full arena. Every cadet watching. Instructors evaluating. These fights determined class rankings, bragging rights, future assignments. Careers were made or broken in this ring. Marcus walked into the arena carrying a mop. I need you to understand the absolute audacity of this moment. We are talking about an exhibition match with the top-ranked cadet in the entire academy, someone who had never lost a single fight, and this human, this last-place human, brought a mop. Not even a combat staff disguised as a mop. An actual, legitimate, still slightly damp from cleaning the barracks mop. The crowd went silent. Then someone started laughing. Then everyone was laughing. Even the instructors were struggling to keep straight faces. Commander Torvanix looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. Cress, to her credit, did not laugh. She stood in her ready position, plasma blade humming in her hand, and watched Marcus with those predator eyes that had made grown warriors nervous. "Are you mocking me?" she asked, her voice carrying across the arena. "No." Marcus hefted the mop, testing its weight. "Just evening the odds a bit. You think that makes this fair? Honestly? Still think you are going to kick my butt? But at least now I have reach." The referee, looking extremely confused but unwilling to argue with a technicality in the rules that did not specifically forbid cleaning supplies, signaled the start of the match. Cress moved like lightning. Marcus moved like someone who had never seen lightning but had heard it was pretty fast. She closed the distance in a heartbeat, blades singing through the air in a strike that would have ended the fight instantly. Marcus blocked it with the mop handle. The crowd gasped. Cress struck again, a combination that had destroyed opponents before. Marcus somehow, impossibly, got the mop in the way of each strike. He was not countering. He was not attacking. He was just not surviving. "Stop running." Cress snarled. "I am not running. I am tactically repositioning." He was absolutely running. But here is what nobody else was seeing yet, what I was only just starting to realize as I watched the footage with growing amazement. Marcus was not just surviving randomly. Every block, every desperate dodge, every stumbling retreat was moving Cress exactly where Marcus wanted her. He was hurting her. The realization hit me the same moment it hit Cress. Her eyes widened just as Marcus planted the mop, used it to vault over her head, and swept her legs out from under her as he landed. The top-ranked cadet in the Galactic Defense Academy hit the mat hard. The arena exploded. Marcus stood there, breathing hard, holding a mop like it was a legendary weapon, and grinned down at Cress. "Good match," he said cheerfully. Cress looked up at him, and then she did something I had never seen her do before. She laughed. The thing about beating the top cadet in front of the entire academy is that people stop ignoring you pretty much immediately. Marcus became famous overnight. Not in a good way, mind you. The betting pools had lost millions of credits. Cadets who had wagered their entire stipends on what should have been the safest bet in galactic history were now broke and furious. Bourne looked like someone had killed his favorite pet. 3 different cadets filed formal complaints claiming the match was rigged. Commander Torvanix called an emergency inquiry. I was there, of course, documenting everything. They replayed the fight footage 12 times. They analyzed every angle. They brought in combat specialists from 4 different species to review Marcus's technique. The conclusion? Completely legitimate. Unorthodox, unconventional, borderline insane, but legitimate. Marcus had won fair and square with a cleaning implement against one of the finest warriors the Academy had produced in decades. How did you do it? Torvanix demanded, his 4 arms crossed in what I had learned meant he was either impressed or about to explode. Sometimes both. Marcus shrugged. I watched her fight for 8 weeks, sir. Cress is faster than me, stronger than me, better trained than me. But she has patterns. Everyone does. I just figured out where she would be and made sure I was not there. With a mop. It has good reach, sir. Torvanix stared at him for a full 30 seconds without blinking. Then, incredibly, the commander smiled. It was terrifying. Kraylon smiles usually are. But it was genuine. You are still ranked last in individual combat scores, Webb. Yes, sir. Probably will stay that way, sir. Good. Stay humble. Dismissed. The aftermath was chaos, and I loved every second of it. Suddenly everyone wanted to understand what had happened. How had the anchor pulled off the impossible? Cadets who had mocked Marcus for weeks now studied his movements during training. Instructors started paying attention to his tactical suggestions during team exercises. Cress, surprisingly, took the loss better than anyone expected. I caught her in the training hall 2 days later, running through combat sequences. Marcus was there too, still terrible at fighting, still getting knocked down repeatedly. Your footwork is atrocious, Cress observed, helping him up after a particularly nasty throw. Yeah, I know. My everything is pretty atrocious, honestly. But your mind is sharp. She tapped his forehead with one claw. You see the battle clearly. Most fighters get lost in the moment, in the adrenaline. You stay calm. That is because I am too slow to panic properly. She laughed again. I was starting to realize that Marcus had somehow done the impossible and earned the Zenthree's respect. That alone was worth documenting. Week 10 brought the survival exercises, and this is where the Academy separates the competent from the exceptional. They drop you on a hostile moon with minimal supplies and a simple objective. Survive for 72 hours while avoiding or neutralizing the hunter drones programmed to eliminate you. Most cadets survived alone, relying on their individual skills. The exceptional ones worked in pairs or small groups. The legendary ones? They did something nobody expected. Marcus organized everyone. I am serious. The human who could barely pass a physical fitness test somehow convinced 47 cadets from a dozen different species to work together. He set up a base camp, established patrol rotations, created supply distribution networks, and turned what should have been a desperate survival situation into something resembling a functional military operation. This is insane, I muttered to myself, watching the feeds from my observation station. This should not work. But it did work. Spectacularly. The hunter drones were programmed to pick off isolated targets. They were not prepared for organized resistance. When they attacked, they ran into coordinated defensive positions. When they tried to flank, they got ambushed by patrol groups. Within 24 hours, Marcus's impromptu army had neutralized every single drone on the moon. The instructors were baffled. Webb, Commander Torvanix said during the debriefing, you were supposed to survive. Not conquer the entire exercise. Sorry, sir. I can do it worse next time if you want. Do not apologize for excellence, cadet. Even accidental excellence. The rankings shifted after that. Marcus was still last in individual combat. Still bottom tier in weapons qualification. Still could not run the obstacle course without getting stunned at least 15 times. But a new category appeared on the evaluation boards. Leadership potential. Strategic thinking. Team coordination. Marcus Webb ranked first in all of them. People are starting to talk, Cress told him one evening in the mess hall. I was nearby, pretending to review reports while absolutely eavesdropping. They say you are either a genius pretending to be incompetent or the luckiest fool in the galaxy. Can I be both? Marcus asked around a mouthful of something that allegedly passed for food. Human dietary requirements were bizarre. Seriously. What is your plan here? You graduate last in combat, first in leadership. Where does that leave you? Alive, hopefully. Look, Cress, I know what I am. I will never be the fastest or the strongest. I will never win a straight fight against basically anyone here. But I can help people who are fast and strong win their fights. That has to count for something, right? She studied him with those intense predator eyes. You would make a terrible warrior. I know. But you might make an excellent commander. That conversation stuck with me. I had been documenting academy training for 17 cycles, and I had never quite heard it put that way before. We were so focused on creating individual warriors that we sometimes forgot wars were not won by lone fighters. They were won by armies, by coordination, by someone who could see the whole battlefield and move the pieces effectively. Marcus was not a piece. He was becoming the player. Week 14 brought the final evaluation, the scenario that determined your ultimate class ranking and your assignment after graduation. It was elaborate, complicated, designed to test every skill you had learned. Combat, tactics, leadership, adaptability, everything. The scenario was simple in concept but brutal in execution. 2 teams. Capture the enemy base while defending your own. Full equipment. Live ammunition with safety limiters. 40 cadets per side. 8-hour time limit. The team compositions were randomized, which meant Marcus ended up on the opposite side from Cress. The betting pools immediately exploded back to life. Could the anchor lead a team to victory against the Academy's top warrior? Most people said no. The odds were actually worse than his original fight with Cress. I might have bet against him again. Listen, I am a creature of habit. The match began at dawn. I settled into my observation post with enough stimulant brew to kill a Pelthian and prepared for 8 hours of exhausting documentation. What I got was a masterclass in unconventional warfare. Marcus's team was not weak. They had solid fighters, good tacticians, capable soldiers. But Cress's team was stacked. The top 5 ranked cadets were all on her side. On paper, this should have been a slaughter. Marcus gathered his team before the match started. I had the audio feed, so I heard every word. Okay, everyone, listen up. We are going to lose if we fight fair. So we are not going to fight fair. That is against regulations, someone protested. What regulations? The only rule is capture their base and protect ours. Everything else is just suggestions. He spent 10 minutes outlining a plan so ridiculous that half his team thought he was joking. The other half thought he was crazy. But Marcus had earned enough credibility that they agreed to try it anyway. The match started. Cress's team advanced with textbook precision, a strong center push with flanking elements, exactly what you would expect from well-trained cadets led by someone who knew what she was doing. They reached Marcus's base in under an hour. It was empty. Every single member of Marcus's team had abandoned their base completely and circled around to attack Cress's undefended position. The fastest encirclement in Academy history. That is cheating. Vorn screamed over the comms when he realized what happened. That is tactics. Marcus replied cheerfully. Cress immediately adapted, pulling her forces back to defend, but now she was fighting on 2 fronts. The cadets Marcus had left behind as a skeleton crew suddenly revealed themselves, harassing Cress's retreat. Not engaging directly, just slowing them down, forcing them to waste time. Meanwhile, Marcus's main force hit Cress's base like a hammer. They did not have the individual skill to win protracted fights, but they did not need to. They had numbers, coordination, and the element of complete surprise. Fall back to secondary positions. Cress commanded. I could hear the frustration in her voice. She knew what was happening. Marcus had forced her into a defensive posture, negating her advantages in direct combat. The battle raged for 6 more hours. It was glorious chaos. Marcus's team was not winning fights. They were winning the war. Every engagement was designed to waste Cress's time, to force her team out of position, to create openings. Cress was brilliant, I will give her that. She adapted constantly, read Marcus's strategies, countered his moves. If this had been a purely tactical exercise between 2 experienced commanders, she probably would have won. But it was not. Her team was getting tired, frustrated, making mistakes. Marcus's team was energized, believing in the plan, trusting their commander. At the 7-hour and 43-minute mark, with just 17 minutes left on the clock, Marcus's team breached Cress's base and captured the objective. The arena erupted again. This time, I did not lose money. This time, I had bet everything on Marcus Webb. The graduation ceremony happened 2 weeks later. Commander Torvanix stood at the podium, addressing the assembled cadets, instructors, and observers like myself. This class has been unprecedented, he announced, his voice carrying through the massive hall. We have seen records broken, expectations shattered, and established doctrines questioned. One cadet in particular has forced us to reconsider what we look for in the soldiers we train. Everyone knew who he meant. Marcus Webb, front and center. Marcus walked up, still somehow managing to look slightly awkward in his dress uniform. The human had conquered the most prestigious military academy in the galaxy and still walked like someone who might trip over his own feet. Cadet Webb, you are ranked last in individual combat scores. Yes, sir. You barely passed weapons qualification. Yes, sir. You hold the record for most time stunned during obstacle course runs. That one I am actually proud of, sir. It takes commitment to fail that consistently. The hall laughed. Even Torvanix's mouth twitched. You also rank first in tactical analysis, first in leadership evaluation, and first in overall team performance metrics. You have won battles you should have lost, defeated opponents you had no business defeating, and inspired cadets who should have known better than to follow someone ranked dead last. Torvanix picked up a data pad. Your assignment, Cadet Webb, has been debated extensively. Many suggested frontline combat units. Others recommended tactical planning divisions. Command track was mentioned repeatedly. He paused for effect. Kraylon loved drama. You are being assigned to Special Operations Task Force 17 as a tactical coordinator and field commander. You will lead teams into situations where conventional approaches have failed. You will be responsible for soldiers far more skilled in combat than yourself. And you will probably get them all killed if you are as incompetent as your individual scores suggest. Marcus swallowed hard. Yes, sir. However, Torvanix continued, and now he was definitely smiling that terrifying smile, if you are half as clever as you have proven to be, you might just save the galaxy a few times. Congratulations, Commander Webb. The hall exploded in applause. Even Vorn was clapping, though he looked pained about it. Cress approached Marcus after the ceremony. I was there, still documenting, always documenting. Commander Webb, she said with mock formality. Quite the journey from the anchor. Still the worst fighter here, Marcus replied. Yes. But perhaps the best leader. She extended her hand, a human gesture she had learned. It was an honor to lose to you. Twice. The honor was mine. Thanks for not killing me during training. I considered it several times. I know. I was there. They shook hands, warrior to warrior, and I captured the moment for posterity. Later, much later, after the ceremonies and celebrations had ended, I found Marcus alone in the empty observation deck, looking out at the stars. Congratulations, Commander, I said, announcing my presence. You made history today. Did I? Feels like I just stumbled through 9 months of barely surviving. That is what makes it remarkable. You knew you were not the best warrior. So you became something else. Something we needed without realizing it. Marcus turned to look at me. You documented everything, right? The whole embarrassing mess. Every second. Good. Make sure they include the part where I fell on my face the first day. And the mop fight. Especially the mop fight. Why? He grinned, and it was the same grin he had worn every time he got knocked down during training. Hopeful. Resilient. Unbreakable. Because maybe someone else out there is ranked last in their class, thinking they do not belong, that they are not good enough. Maybe they need to know that the worst fighter in the room can still change the game. That being last does not mean being worthless. I added that to my report too. Marcus Webb graduated ranked 247th out of 247 cadets in individual combat scores. He also graduated as the only cadet in Academy history to defeat the top-ranked warrior with a cleaning implement and successfully lead outnumbered forces to victory through tactics so unconventional that they literally rewrote sections of the training manual. The Galactic Defense Academy learned something important that cycle. Sometimes the worst student in class is exactly what you need. Sometimes the person who fails every test is the one who understands the real lessons. Sometimes the anchor is not dragging you down but keeping you grounded while you figure out how to sail. And sometimes, just sometimes, all you need is a mop and the audacity to believe you can win. I am Krill, and I documented it all. Every stumble. Every failure. Every impossible victory. And I would bet on Marcus Webb again without hesitation. Even at terrible odds. Especially at terrible odds. Because that is what humans do best. They look at impossible situations, at overwhelming odds, at battles they cannot win, and they smile that infuriating smile and say, "Watch this." The galaxy was not ready for Marcus Webb. But then again, the galaxy never is ready for humans. That is what makes them so entertaining to document.